Another early lead is another reason why it's time. It's time for this era of Auburn football to end.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Another morning after show. That means we are joined by Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio vet, and not super excited to wrap this one up, but Auburn, despite leading at one point 17-0, falls 21-17 against the LSU Tigers. And Darrell, an LSU team that isn't as good as Auburn. I believe that. I do think they gifted us some things in regards to like plenty of drop passes, but we'll get into more of the game in a moment. But Darrell, is there any argument other than $15 million to keep Bryan Harsin any longer as the head coach for the Auburn football program?
Absolutely not. And I think the sooner it gets done, the better. Look, this game completely changed after halftime. And in the first half, there was a script being written that was like, what in the world is going on? What are these adjustments? What are these other people that are getting involved? Where has this been all year? And then at the end of the day, you've got to be able to close, and the game will play out and tell you exactly who you are. And Auburn, in my opinion, gifted that game to LSU. Okay, sure. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm not trying to sound like a fan guy or whatever. There was a lot of things. They lost 4 turnovers to 1, some inopportune penalties, some missed opportunities with execution, kicks, and that kind of thing. So Auburn could have went into halftime 20-7. But when you continually over the last year and a half cannot make second half adjustments, and when other teams take away what you do well and you can't counter react to that, it's time. I mean, what is going to happen to make that any better? And why wait? There's no reason to wait. Those kids deserve better, in my opinion. They played really, really hard. The defense, hats off. But they were not put in a position to succeed in the second half with some really head-scratching decisions.
In a game where Robby Ashford threw for 330-plus yards, ran the ball just fine, made pretty good decisions for the most part, you should not lose that game. And you mentioned the 4 turnovers. The one I'm most okay with is the one that, just got taken away from Koy Moore. I mean, I think the LSU defenders made a great play, but all the other ones, like a muffed punt, in execution on special teams, to me is all coaching. Because that is just like the most specific part of the game where like you have to teach constantly every single situation possible. And there's almost an unlimited amount of them. And it just seems like Auburn is lacked there. And, I think Keontae Scott's a good player, and I think he's only going to get better, and that's a super unfortunate situation for him. But, like, the kicking game, just being unwilling to use Anders, then, like, okay, if you're not confident in Anders, like, is Evan McPherson ready to go? Like, why is the move just to not use the kicker late in the game when points were going to be hard to come by in the second half? You only needed a few. If you make your kicks, or if you get into field goal situation and actually use your kicker consistently, and there's just so many parts of this, Darrell, where I'm just like, why are these kids being put in this situation? And like Koy Moore, the interception thrown by Koy Moore, like, I get being cutesy on the play call and all that, but like, I don't think that was a part of the field where you needed to be cutesy. Like, you had a good chance of getting points. And also, like, why are you putting Koy in that situation where he has to make that decision, either to throw it away or to go down or to make the throw? Like, it's just odd. It was just odd to me, and none of it really seems to make sense.
No, I think that, the job of a head coach after roster management, which we've seen him be very, very poor at as far as creating a roster, you do that in a couple different ways. You do that with recruiting, and in this day and age, you do it with transfer portal additions. And I think that has been something he has been very, very lax on as far as it's well documented. His recruiting has been subpar. His transfer portal additions have been, some have contributed, but in areas of biggest concern and biggest need, they haven't been addressed. So your first job as a head coach is roster management, and then putting that roster in positions to succeed, knowing their weaknesses and their strengths and that kind of thing. When you continually give away points and leave points on the field with going forward on 4th and 10 at the 50-yard line instead of punting somebody deep with the way your defense is playing, or you try that cutesy little wide receiver pass from Koy Moore. How big would a field goal have been with Auburn driving down 21-20 instead of 21-17? Mm-hmm. Huge, And again, there were some things that happened that were outside coach's realm and control, but I think the backside strip that the defensive lineman for LSU that's going to be playing in the league made a great play on Robby. That's not something you really can blame Robby Ashford for. They rolled him out. Yeah, the other turnovers though, you're scratching your head going, and he got bailed out with the holding call on the second 4th down that he went for at the same spot on the field, and then a timeout was burned the first time Auburn went for it, and to decide whether to kick the field goal or to go for it on 4th down, and that timeout looked like it was going to loom large late when Auburn had to stop LSU running the ball. Those are all suspect coaching decisions. They're coaching decisions that you may get away with in the Mountain West, but you ain't going to get away with it in the SEC. And that is what's coming to fruition right now. And that's why I think the writing's on the wall. It's in the tea leaves. Why do you wait? Why do you wait? And what are you hoping for to gain? The money doesn't go down week to week. The money doesn't go down until December. It's $18 million now. It's $15 million in December. So it doesn't matter if it's this week or if it's next week or the bye week. What does it matter? Let's go ahead and end the narrative, get the dark cloud over. Those kids played really, really hard. I was shocked at the atmosphere, environment, enthusiasm, overall tenor, and just feel for that game in the first half. I had to keep doing a double take, thinking about what me and you were going to talk about tonight, because I thought it was going to go completely different than I did originally. And then it settled into the second half, and it became the crap show that we kind of expected. Yeah, no, it's been bad. And just looking at some of the stuff, like Auburn allowed, what was it? It was like 3.2. Is it 3.2 yards per play? And it's like the lowest in an SEC game since Auburn won against Tennessee in 2008. And then, LSU's quarterback numbers are atrocious. They threw 10 of 26 for 85 yards, Darrell. 85 yards. And your quarterback threw for over 300 and you lost. So it's just like, at what point, if you can't win with that, you're at home, by the way. If you can't win with that, like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing here? Yeah, if you tell me that you held LSU under 300 yards and you had over 400 yards of offense, there's no way I think Auburn loses that game, except you go back to turnovers, and turnovers will get you beat every single time. But I think turnovers are a symptom of a bigger problem, and turnovers are a result of being coached correct. I know, I get it. Coaches don't go out there and fumble the ball, don't throw interceptions, but at some point you got to be held accountable. If you're coaching a football team that's minus 10 on the turnover ledger, that falls on you. You're the head coach. Sorry. Do something different. What are you scheming? What are you play calling? What is your personnel packages that are forcing those kind of things? And so I can't imagine Robby Ashford playing a better game the rest of the year than he did tonight, and you get beat. Right. I mean, that's concerning. So, I like some of them. They went tempo coming right out of the gate. They went fast. I saw one thing that Robby Ashford did so well was when he got out of the pocket, he just didn't settle for running. He kept his eyes downfield and found guys downfield for big plays. Yeah. And a lot of that was due to the fact that LSU's linebackers were told all week, don't let him beat you with his legs. So they sucked up. When he started to break down and run, they came up, and it had big plays over the top. Again, but that's still not enough because of the really curious decisions and some of the positions he put the players in the second half. Right. You can't close. He cannot close. Look, I hate to say it. It's a results-oriented business. Look at the numbers with what Auburn's done in the second half since the Mississippi State game. The points they've scored.
I've got it here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tweet. He's just updating the tweet every week at this point of 247. Auburn's last 8 second halves against Power 5 teams. 0 points, 0 points, 6 points, 3 points, 3 points, 6 points, 0 points, 3 points.
I mean, that gets you beat. Yeah, I mean, what do you just think if, let's be conservative and say half of those games, if Auburn doubled those point totals, that's a conservative estimate. Half of those games, not all, just half, Auburn doubled those point totals in the second half. They probably would have won 2 more games last year, and they would have won 2 more games already this year. And they'd be sitting at, or 1 more game at least this year. They'd be sitting at 4-1. So,
and obviously some of those are 0. So, like, doubling that doesn't. But like, if you just added a scoring drive,
yes, right, just added something to 0.
You beat Mississippi State. You beat
South Carolina.
You beat
Houston,
Alabama.
Houston in the bowl game.
Yeah, I mean.
Penn State was the only game where it was like, okay, that nothing that was happening in the second half,
which that was going to make a difference. Points over the summer, right? It was the whole like, well, they never got blown out. They were always competitive. It's like, yeah, if we can take that next step, it'll be there. And it just, the next step is never.
Well, that's why I think people were willing to give Bryan Harsin a chance this year. I mean, let's be honest. There was a lot of the Auburn fan base and a lot of people that are talking about it's time now to move on, including myself. I'm not going to have amnesia. I'm going to be transparent and be honest.
Sure.
I was excited about the hire.
I was too.
I stuck with him for a long time, even through last year when some of that happened down the stretch and it fell apart.
Yep.
I really felt like he was going to get the ship corrected this year, even with the poor recruiting offseason. I just felt like when Calzada came in, I really had a different version of how the season was going to play out.
Yeah.
And so I stuck with it and did have hope. And the Penn State game is when that game was over, is when I knew that ship had sailed, and it was time to just kind of move on and go ahead and punt, and kind of the quicker you do it, the quicker you send the message that you're not settling and that you want what's best for the program. That's what I think. I think you have to send that message to those players.
Yeah.
You have to send that message to the recruits that were there. I saw some things on the Discord where people were saying, hey, who would want to come here after that second half? See, I take the opposite stand on that. I see the atmosphere, the excitement, the fans staying in it through the whole game, the way Auburn came out in the first half. And if I'm a kid that's a recruit, I say, hey, with the right coach, this place can be even more electric and can be even more special.
Yeah, if you make the right hire, it's not gonna matter. And Darrell, you know who makes making the right hire easier?
Oh, this is a great transition. I bet I know.
Our friends at LinkedIn.
Yes.
I mean, if you're listening to this show and you're frustrated this morning, you realize how important every hire could be for your business, for your football team, whatever it may be. Every hire is so crucial these days. And you may be going into a new era where you have to replace someone, and that hire could be even more moving forward. So head over to linkedinjobs.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Darrell Dapprich, our guest. Excuse me. So, Darrell, the first half where we saw this offense really do everything that I'm saying the collective we, this show, other shows, Auburn fans on social media, maybe players' dads who have said things. Everybody has said, quicker passes, get the ball out to help the offensive line and the quarterback more, get Javarius Johnson and Koy Moore involved in the passing game early. It's like, man, we saw all of that. We saw all of it, and it was incredible. And it's like, man, you're consistently moving the chains. You had burst plays. I think Auburn had 6 plays of over 20 yards. It's like, yes, all right, we're getting here. We're getting there. And then you couldn't keep it going for 60 minutes. And it's a shame. But it almost is more telling to me that you realize, like, okay, let's do this. And I'm not saying he's doing like, okay, let's do this because everybody's telling us to. I'm not saying he had that approach, but the fact that you went into this game realizing like, okay, this is what we need to focus on, but you couldn't either open up the playbook enough or install enough for it to last for a full game. And to me, that's concerning. Once again, it's like, what are we doing here?
Well, I'm going to tell you, you nailed it. This is it in a microcosm. So the things that they did early on that we have all been calling for months, the slants, the throwing the ball to Cam Brown, hallelujah, in the back of the end zone, the little trick play that Robby Ashford got the ball back and threw it to Amari Kelly, and he would have scored if not for the tip, made a great play. All those plays were great. But guess what I saw in the second half? I saw LSU adjust to those plays. I saw them not bite on the receiver throw with Koy Moore. I saw them double Cam Brown. I saw them take away the slant. And when all that happened, they didn't have an answer. So, yeah, great things in the first half that LSU wasn't prepared for, that we had been screaming for and clamoring for this season. Auburn did. But then once they did it once and it got taken away, they did not have an answer to do something else. We saw some effective running plays at time on 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1. Auburn didn't get stopped. They got the first down every time, and they ran tank or Robby kept it. They did what they had to do. They threw the ball to the tight end. They threw some seam routes that were really, really nice. I saw some of those. So, but then when LSU started, they dropped that linebacker and Robby had a wide open shanker for 20 yards down the field, and that guy tips it. Baskerville knocks it down. And an example of shanker had the reception 4 plays earlier. LSU adjusts. Auburn can't execute. That's on coaching. That's coaching, and that's why I think when you look at the film, second half, when you can't close and you can't adjust, you lose. That's the bottom line. I'd rather be a team that falls behind 10-0 in the first half and has a great second half as a fourth quarter team. That's a mark of a good team and good coaching. Yeah, some of the teams that won along
that you collect over the course of the game and say,
exactly.
Hey, let's get our guys into a chance. Yep. I hate it. I hate it for all the kids involved. And I think from a personnel standpoint, they're getting guys in on the field that need to be there, like Brandon Council at center.
Yes.
It worked out.
Got some push, didn't he? I liked it. I liked the push he got.
Yeah.
I liked a couple.
Jackson, he was in there. He looked good. Is the offensive line great? No, but
they were better. They were better. Yeah. But why wasn't that offensive line the offensive line Auburn was playing with the whole year? See, that's another indictment on not having the proper personnel out there. If Robby Ashford's playing quarterback and Brandon Council's playing center and Koy Moore is your starting receiver because of necessity, because of injuries, then that's not good coaching. You're not making the right decisions to begin with. You lucked up into getting guys on the field that's supposed to be on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you imagine this offense, though, without Jarquez Hunter? And it's like he somehow only touched the ball 8 times. But it's like, man, every time that dude is involved in a play, something good happens. I mean, you could almost make the argument there are times, especially last night against LSU, where the offense looks better with him on the field than Tank.
I saw that. Yeah, I felt that way too. Flow-wise, push.
I don't think he's better than Tank, but as far as fit and flow and chemistry and all of that, as far as what Auburn's trying to do offensively, he needs more snaps, I think, right now.
I agree. There's a kid that, credit where credit's due, 3-star out of Mississippi, late signee.
Right.
Didn't have a lot of big offers, so that was a good, talent evaluation, and he's getting utilized, but I think he needs to touch the ball more because here's a guy that really does a good job too, Zach, getting the ball out of the backfield on swing passes, catching the ball. He's a very effective receiver, and then he's good with the ball after he catches it in space.
Yep.
So I'd like to see him. I would have liked to seen a fresh Damari Alston and his fresh legs a little bit tonight, maybe get 3 or 4 carries too.
Did Damari play?
I didn't see him.
I don't know if he I
didn't see him.
Blocking situation or not, but
yeah, I didn't see him.
Yeah. Later today, the PFF numbers will get up, and I'll write about that at auburndaily.com. But I don't know, just the overall flow of everything something good would happen. You get the momentum, and then just either Auburn would get its own way, or there'd be a weird play call, or you'd muff a punt. Like it was tough. Really, really tough game to watch. Really, really tough. And then it was so close in like a week where a lot of, I think if Auburn would have won this, obviously with the spin would have been, all right, cool, Auburn beat LSU. That's fantastic. But in a league where like, okay, I don't think Arkansas is that good.
Texas A&M.
I leave that game saying Auburn could beat Arkansas and Texas A&M at home this year. And that still could happen. We'll see what the offense does after they move on from Harsin if they do that. But they're totally beatable at home, both of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you
about that right now, because like there's just such a buzzkill on everything going on because of this.
Well, if Auburn holds on and wins that game tonight or last night, like they should have, if I would have told you that LSU, Arkansas, and Texas A&M all were at 2 losses and Auburn was at 1, I would have had to go to the shrink. No one would have believed me. And that's how close last night Auburn was to getting that done. It goes to your point about the SEC West being a little bit down this year, being a lot more mediocre than they have. Now I get it. Ole Miss beat Kentucky last night and Alabama, pulled away from Arkansas. So you still got 3 teams, you still got 2 teams at the top of the West that are undefeated, but there's a lot more jumbled up after that. And Auburn is in a situation with some better coaching or better decision-making could be right there, behind Alabama knocking on the door in the West with personnel-wise and with some things that could have happened differently this year.
Yeah. So we record this before Harsin talks to the media because that gap between the end of the game and the start of his presser seems to be getting longer and longer, which is fine. We want to talk more about the game and the impact than exactly what he has to say anyway. But while they wait, a lot of the media members tweet out stats. And I want to read this one to you. This one's from Justin Ferguson. I'm going to phrase it into a question for you, Darrell.
Okay.
This is Ferg's tweet. Auburn has played 10 SEC games under Bryan Harsin. It has scored more than 7 points in the second half. In how many of those games do you think?
I'm going to say 2.
Just 2. Yep.
Arkansas and LSU last year.
You nailed it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Which is the best 2 games because the best win was Ole Miss, but the second
they kind of went into a shell in the second half. Yeah, they hung on. And if not for some curious 4th down attempts by Lane Kiffin, that game could have been different too last year. So, LSU and Arkansas were the only games where they got separation in the second half or had a big second half to take control of the game.
Yep. All right, we share more of our thoughts on this loss in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Want to encourage you to join the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below or in the show summary, depending on what they call it or whatever podcast app you're listening to. But check it out. Click there. It was a crazy place to be last night. Very, very fun place to be. It's all free. Just check that out and join it today. Darrell, as far as individuals, let's talk about some guys that impressed us and then some guys we want more from.
Sure.
So, overall, was impressed with Robby. His touch in some of the shorter passes were a little reckless, I think. But all in all, I was really impressed with him. I think the biggest, if you want to boog on this, if you want to be booging, looking at Robby and saying like, man, you can see a future with this kid. I think that's exciting. He kind of won me over more. Not that I was anti-Robby by any stretch, but he kind of won me over in the sense of like, this kid could do it. Like, I think if he had a real offense around him and protection up front and play calling, I think he's got the weapons as far as pass catchers. I think this kid could really be something. So he was a big winner for me. And then I'll give you one on defense. I think DJ James is spectacular. I think he is absolutely incredible. He could be Auburn's next high draft pick at corner.
Yeah, I agree. Mine would be Hunter. We talked about him. I thought he really stood out to me and really gave Auburn a lot of juice and a shot in the arm when he got in the game. You could just tell there's a little bit different level of intensity. And then on the defensive side, I thought Bragg played really good tonight, especially coming in for Leota after he got hurt on that sack attempt. I think Bragg had a sack or two, but he did a great job holding the edge. So I was really impressed with him as well. Secondary didn't play too bad. I mean, they had a couple of
the defense was fine.
The defense played well. A couple ticky-tack, pass interference calls. Donovan Kaufman makes the big play on the fumble that I thought was going to be the signature play of the game. I started getting hope again. I thought, oh, here we go. Auburn's going to go down and score. After that, the fumble in the recovery was made. So, I saw a lot of things that gave me hope, which makes what happened tonight sting even a little bit more. It makes it even more frustrating. 2012, to me, I never saw any of that. I never felt – there was a lot of football games I didn't feel like Auburn was in at all. And, that game tonight, Auburn could have and should have won that game last night. And that's what's frustrating.
This isn't a 3-9 team.
No.
They'll upset someone this year, I think, whether it's an Ole Miss or Mississippi State on the road or an Arkansas or an A&M at home. I think they're going to win more games.
I think the defense will keep them in a lot of games. And if they go ahead and make the move and get somebody else calling plays that maybe was on that staff that probably silently was thinking, why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing that?
Maybe.
And they get the opportunity to do that, you could end up, like you said, with a couple of upsets. Western Kentucky left on the schedule, but they lose last night to Troy, so that's a winnable game.
Yeah.
Defense will travel, and their defense has played really, really well the last couple games and has kept them in ball games. Missouri and LSU. Look at the numbers and the yards they've given up. So get some things tweaked on offense. And maybe that offensive line with this new unit gels a little bit. That over the next couple of weeks, you never know.
Let's spend just a second talking about guys that we want to see more from. I'll start with defense on this. Owen Papo. I just don't notice him.
Amen. That was mine too.
He's the only 5-star on this roster. Like, what do we do? Wesley Steiner was everywhere, good and bad. I mean, for the most part, he was good. That touchdown run was just an incredible run. And so, you're not going to make all of your tackles as a linebacker, especially with as inexperienced as he is. But Wesley Steiner, I thought he was really solid for the most part. Obviously, wasn't perfect, but Owen, where are you, buddy? I hate it for him.
Well, Cam Riley in the first game had 16 or 17 tackles. Wesley Steiner tonight had 16 or 17 tackles. Why do you think they're getting so many tackles? Because of Owen Papo. I mean, that's why. They are absolutely having to make up for and cover certain there's no reason why Papo should not have more tackles than he does, and that the guys playing next to him are in 15, 16 tackle territory. That's telling me something's wrong. It's not scheme. It's not that LSU and Mercer are running away from Papo and running it. He whiffs too much. He's the linebacker that got caught looking in the backfield when Emory went down the sideline on the wheel route and didn't stay with him, and that was a blown coverage, and that was Papo's man. So, that's got to happen. You got to get more from your senior leader, like you said, a 5-star. And on the offensive side, I'm a big Koy Moore fan, but that's why you try not to run that mouth too much going into a game. You draw attention to yourself. You put the bullseye in your chest. Some things that happened late. Now, again, I get it. He got put in a bad situation throwing the ball, but throw that away. And then that was a great play by the LSU defender on that strip of him. But I wanted to see, a couple more big plays from him down the field. And Shed Jackson's kind of disappeared too.
He has. There are times where he's not even on the field, and it's like Amari Kelly's playing over you. Good for Amari, and he had a good snag there. But that's been a little surprising. And Koy had. I don't know what they count that pick. I don't know if that's technically a drop, but I know he had another one too. It's like, dang, that's a shame. I'll say Austin Troxell. His last 2 games have not been good. And it's funny, the first few, it was like, okay, the tackles are solid, and then the interior didn't get a push. It almost seemed backwards this time. I think Zaire was fine. I may be saying his name wrong, by the way. They said his name differently in the broadcast. I don't know. I got to figure that out. But yeah, I wanted to see more out of Troxell, and he seems to have gotten worse. It may have just been the competition getting better, but I wanted to see more out of him. So
that's personnel real quick, which you've talked about. The unwillingness to change things when they're not working, not giving McPherson a chance to kick field goals if you don't have confidence in your field goal kicker. If Troxell's becoming a turnstile over there at right tackle, why not try Coffee? What is it going to kill you at this point? You're not getting the production you need anyway, so why would it change to hurt and try something different?
Coffee could wake the offense up.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Why you take a sit? That's clutch. I'm sure you can find a coffee cup behind my shoulder, too, in this china cabinet. If you want a parfait glass, just take the pick.
You got a lot of stuff going on back there.
Yeah, I do. It's tough.
What did you think of we're about out of time, Darrell. What did you think of all right, so first we had Jarrett Stidham is from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had Bo Nix, his dad played at Auburn.
Right.
Then we had TJ Finley's tall.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have, yesterday was Robby Ashford's birthday.
Yes, 20 years old, and they absolutely
like 6 times.
Yeah, showed his family in the stands, talked about, him playing at Hoover and not seeing the field at Oregon. Yeah, they said that a lot. And I will say this, though, I enjoy the analysis with that crew with some of the things last night that they pointed out. Mm-hmm. From a standpoint, what LSU's linebackers were doing, why Robby Ashford was having success throwing the ball downfield. There were some good things that were pointed out.
He's a banger, but I think McElroy's good.
I do too. I begrudgingly say that, but he points out. I like the little stories he told about being the quarterback in that end zone and how brutal it is when the student section and band is right behind you. So he does a good job of staying, pretty unbiased, unlike other Alabama quarterbacks.
Sure.
So there you go.
Leave it at that. Mm-hmm. Darrell, thank you for your time as always, buddy. Maybe one of these we'll get to do after a win again.
It'll be fun when we do, but I enjoy it. And I tell you, it's just a lot to break down. It's a tough night, but thanks again for having me.
Of course, there is a chance that this will be a huge week for Auburn athletics, which means we will have a huge week here on the show, making sure we are step by step with everything happening, whether it's a coaching search, whether it's AD news, whatever it may come our way this week. We will have you covered here on Locked On Auburn. Read all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we'll see you tomorrow. Lindsey Crosby will join us right here on Locked On Auburn.